Cheers of victory here at the Curtis campaign, where we just found out that John Curtis is the next mayor of Provo.
Each of these 4 lines can hold 600 pounds of force and is tied to a 16 square meter kite. That can be a lot of power, so when it gets out of control, I pull the safety release and my kite goes flying, but I'm safe in the water.
Amy, what's going on here?
Well, Dave, this letter to Utah lawmakers says that 90% of scientists agree that there is some evidence that humans contribute to climate change. Now, the 18 PhDs who signed this letter are afraid that that evidence isn't being taken into account. It could be your favorite winter pastime, but here in Provo, if you throw a snowball, you could be looking at some fines. When settlers first came to Caleo over 100 years ago, they thought of it as a little oasis in the middle of the desert. But now places that would sink a horse 20 years ago, you can drive over on dry land. And ranchers are worried that piping water out of Snake Valley will cause irreparable damage. Earlier today, this car clocked in at 211 miles per hour. Now they have a bigger engine, and tomorrow they're going to try to beat the standing record of 240 miles. Miembros del Consejo de la Ciudad de Provo, como Sherry Everett, han dicho que algunos negocios que debían haber estado aquí en Provo ahora están en Orem. El centro solo puede aceptar más o menos 20 pacientes por día. Por eso se usa un sistema de sorteo. Alguien que quiera una visita con el dentista tendrá que venir un día antes para escribir en un pedazo de papel su nombre y fecha de nacimiento, el cual será sorteado el día siguiente.
Kite surfing flew into the sports scene in a big way in the late 1990s. Utah's flock is still building up with just a few hundred participants. Chris Gaynor took up kite surfing 3 months ago. He says it offers a freedom that other board sports don't.
There's no boat telling you where to go. There's no gravity telling you where you have to go. You're just free to kind of roam about as you please.
There's the freedom and the power, wind power, strong enough to put you in some pretty serious situations. One danger's lofting. That's when a burst of air unexpectedly pulls you straight up into the sky.
And if it's a 70-mile-per-hour gust or some sort of a microburst, then you're going to have less than 2 seconds before you're high enough that if you bail from the kite, you're probably going to die anyways. And so in that case, you just have to ride it out.
Peter Miller knows just how quickly the wind can leave you high and dry.
And I've been out in winds. I've seen it go from 18 miles an hour to 50 miles an hour, and whoever your God is, you will pray to when those things happen.
Each of these 4 lines can hold 600 pounds of force and is tied to a 16 square meter kite. That can be a lot of power, so when it gets out of control, I pull the safety release and my kite goes flying, but I'm safe in the water.
A lot of preparation goes into kiting. Kiters should take the recommended safety courses, get the feel of a training kite on land, and of course, practice. The equipment might set you back a bit. In 3 months, Chris spent about $2,500, and he bought his kites used. He's also converted his rock wall / pommel horse exercise area into a workshop to make his own boards. But to Chris, expenses balanced by the fun.
I mean, it's a penny, but totally worth it, and I love it.
Amy West, BYU Daily News, Provo. Don Anderson is a cattle farmer, not an easy job in Utah's dry western desert. This ranch has been in his wife's family since the late 1800s. Ranching in the desert wouldn't be possible if it weren't for the life-giving water that sits below Snake Valley.
As we look at a proposed project like this, we can see that there could be significant impacts on us in the future because we are already seeing the impacts that we are affecting upon ourselves.
When settlers first came to Caleo over 100 years ago, they thought of it as a little oasis in the middle of the desert. But now places that would sink a horse 20 years ago, you can drive over on dry land. And ranchers are worried that piping water out of Snake Valley will cause irreparable damage.
The agreement would allow the Southern Nevada Water Authority to pump water from the aquifer 300 miles down to Las Vegas. But ranchers aren't the only ones that don't want to see water hauled out of Snake Valley. Utah air quality specialist Dr. Brian Minch says it's also a question of ethics.
We are sacrificing the livelihoods of hundreds of people who lived out there and have been out there for generations so that we can ship water to Las Vegas so they can expand their housing development and their golf courses and build more fountains for their hotels. I have a real ethical problem with that.
J.C. Davis from the SNWA says it's a misconception that Las Vegas needs the water to expand since the economic downturn has ground construction in the city to a halt. Davis says casinos only use 3% of the city's water, and fountains and golf courses use recycled water. SNWA insists the Snake Valley water would go to Las Vegas homes.
It's not like this extra luxury that we're trying to bring on board. We're talking about protecting a community of 2 million people. That also represents the lion's share of our state economy.